For number 13 on review number 2, it says find the GCF and then factor it out. So first, looking at 30 and 20, 10 can divide into both of those terms evenly. And then since we have an x in both terms, let's take the smallest x out. So we first found the GCF, okay? So that's going to be 10x squared. Then we need to factor it, which is divide. So dividing that, subtracting our exponents. Dividing again, and 2 minus 2 is 0, so I don't really need to write that. Okay, we also discussed we don't need the 1 for our exponent. In number 14, when you factor this one, this is that special type that we did where we do the square root of x squared, which is x, because x times x gets back to x squared. Okay, the square root of 36 is 6. And when I multiply that and 6, I got to get back to negative. So I want to say positive 6 times negative 6 gets back to negative 36. Okay, in number 15 and 16, these are both x factor. These down here, 17 and 18, these are x factor with bottoms up. So I see there's a 1 and a 1 here. These right here have numbers bigger than 1. So for 15, we're just going to do x, first number times last number. So 1 times 20 is 20. Trying to get to 9. And the factors of 20 are listed here to the side. Okay, so which pair can get back to 9? And that would have to be 4 plus 5 equals 9. So I'm going to say x plus 4, x plus 5. 4 plus 5 is 9. For this one, 16, 1 times 30 is 30. But we have to get to negative 13. So the factors of 30 are 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. It looks like we would need to use 3 and 10. So we know that 15 minus 2 is 13, but you see that the 30 has a positive, okay? So a negative times a negative makes a positive. And if I add two negatives, I keep the negative to get negative 13. So right here, my factors would be x minus 3 and x minus 10. For number 17, again, we're going to do that first times last. So 5 times 2 is 10, and we got to get to 7. So for 10, 1 times 10, 2 times 5. So 2 and 5 can make 7. So I write out the factored form. I find the first number of this problem, which is a 5. Okay? You have to divide the factors by 5. So you have to ask yourself, can this divide? No. Can this reduce? No. So then I bring the bottom number up, and I say 5x plus 2. Then we divide 5 and 5, and we just get 1. And that's it. And if we were to do like the 2 by 2 square, we would get back to this if we multiply these together. We'd get back to that answer. So number 18, first times last, would be negative 18. 2 times negative 9, negative 18. Trying to get to negative 7. Factors of 18. So which pair can make negative 7? And that would be 2 and 9. Now, this side of the x factor has to match, so this should be a negative. And let's check it. 2 minus 9 is negative 7. And if I multiply, I get negative 18. So in factor form, we have our x plus 2x minus 9 We have the 2 there. Divide by 2, which we can here to make a 1. Here we cannot, so I bring the bottom up. And I have 2x minus 9. For number 19, when it says to factor, I see that I have 4 terms. Okay? We did factor by grouping when we have 4 terms. We cut the problem in half, and we find the GCF of each one of these. So on this side, 8 goes into both of those numbers, and x squared is the smallest x that you have. On this side, 3 can go into 3 and 12. So you bring these two GCFs together, that is the first answer. Then, to get the second parenthesis, you divide this side. So 3x divided by 3 is 1x. And 12 divided by 3 is 4. Now, we discussed that if I divide and subtract on this side, I get the same answer, and I should get the same answer. So 8 divided by 8 is 1. 3 minus 2 does give me x to the first. 32 divided by 8 is 4. 2 minus 2 is 0, so I don't write that down. And so when I write this in my answer, I don't really need those 1s there around the x. And then if you wanted to check your work, going backwards, if I were to multiply these using that 2 by 2 square, you would get back to that solution. Okay, and number 20, again, 4 terms, so we have to cut in half. On this side, the GCF would be 2x squared. On this side, the GCF is just 1. Only 1 can go into 3 and 2 evenly. So this is my first solution. 2x squared plus 1. And then we divide the second half out. So 3x divided by 1 is 3x. Negative 2 divided by 1 is negative 2. If I divide, subtract here, we get the same thing. So we know we're right. Okay. For the last part here, 21, 22, 23, 24, we're just going to name this by degree and term. So if I look at degree, I'm looking at the exponent, which tells you right there. Degree is your exponent. My biggest exponent. So I'm looking at 4, a 2, 1, and a 3. So using degree, 4 is quartic, 2 is quadratic, 1 is linear, and lastly 3 is cubic. For the term, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So 4 is polynomial. Here we have 1, 2 terms. 2 is binomial. For this one, we only have 1 term. 1 is called monomial. And then lastly, we have 1, 2, 3, and 3 would be a trinomial.